Hello there folks, welcome out to Do It Better, a series where I take a team that have struggled in real life and I take over and attempt to do it better. I'm allowed to make transfers in the first window, no matter how hard that is depending on budgets, and I've already done one of these with Chelsea, so if you want to check that out, there's a link in the description to that playlist if you want to see what it's all about, want to see a completed series. But we upload these every single day this week as a 5-parter, so make sure you're subscribed, and if you're looking forward to it, drop a like. This week, Dortmund. So Borussia Dortmund have had an interestingly tricky start to their season. They actually started not too badly, but then started to fall away a little bit, and of course the regular contender to Bayern Munich in the Bundesliga, it seemed like a good challenge to try and get the best out of the likes of Sancho, Haaland and the other boys, and yeah, so let's see if we can do it. Let's see if we can change a few things around and figure out a way to get this Dortmund team firing like they were about a decade ago, it feels like now. So we're going to take Dortmund's form from 21 games into the league season. They were 6th place at this point. It's about a week ago now, and you can see 33 points. They are a distance 55 points. That's 55 points. 15 points. 55 points would be a challenge I wouldn't even dare take on. 15 points behind Bayern Munich. Leipzig a good 11 ahead of them, right? So there's teams that you ordinarily Dortmund would be expecting to be above, but it hasn't quite been that way. 8 defeats. That seems to be the key thing. Stopping those from happening any further and winning games where they should be winning games are definitely going to be the key to the success of this series. So we're changing things around a little bit from the way we did it with Chelsea. I'm starting a little bit further ahead. I've got a Super Cup against Bayern Munich to come today. And when you're looking at the Dortmund squad, there was one thing that I felt was missing. There was only about £9 million to spend. If you take a look at the finances of the club, there's about 4 left. So I needed someone that could come in and be next to this man, Erling Haaland. He is the key guy when it comes to Borussia Dortmund. He's been signed recently and is a goal machine, right? So we had to have someone that if he got injured, there isn't really anybody at the club that suits his style of play. It's difficult to go and get someone like Haaland for £5 million. But I think I got the closest I could probably get to Haaland if you ignore the physicals a little bit. So the one transfer we brought in was this man. It's very me. If you're listening to the series, this is not that much of a surprise, but there is some logic behind the decision, right? I wanted a focal point. The way I'm going to play this season, we'll talk about the system in a moment, I needed a focal point similar to Haaland. The acceleration and the pace, obviously lacking. Everything else, though, Zlatan's very, very good. Let's take a look at what I'm talking about then. If you compare the two of them here, you can see it quite clearly. The green line being Zlatan's line, the blue line being Haaland's line. Speed, that's the one thing that Haaland has over Zlatan. But everything else, physicality, mental attributes, aerial ability, technical ability, and vision, all far better. Attacking, not much between the two of them. And yeah, Zlatan, I think, is the right man for this role. To come off the bench occasionally, if he needs to be the key man, he still can be, right? The work rate of Zlatan isn't actually that much different to the work rate of Haaland. If we bring them both up, if we bring them by attributes, that's what I'm looking for. Yeah, Zlatan's work rate is 8, Haaland's is 13. It's not really that different. Anything below 15, and they can only sort of play one style. It's not like either of them are going to be playing as pressing forwards for me. Zlatan's aggression slightly higher. That's probably because he's got a black belt in karate. And the true story. And again, mentioning like the fact that Haaland's got the pace is obviously going to be of benefit to him. There's other things Zlatan offers that Haaland doesn't, right? Set pieces, got a great free kick on him, Zlatan. Maybe we'll see him use that occasionally. Long shots as well, something that we'll see from the big man. And you look at those: determination, flair, leadership. Zlatan, yeah, he's got them in spades, I think the phrase I would use. So to me, it's a logical signing. I know people will think, oh, we just bought an older player, but I think you've seen recently Zlatan has gone in at Milan and done a pretty good job. First game he played for Milan, 1 goal, 2 assists, and for some reason they've let me have him for 3.5 million. I certainly wouldn't have sold him being Milan, but here we are. Zlatan, welcome to Dortmund. It's a big fee. It's a 2-year contract. Of course, we're only doing a 1-season challenge, so there's not much to worry about there. But yeah, Zlatan is one of the best players I think we could have attracted for this amount of money, and that was the key thing, right? We didn't have a lot of budget to spend. And player-wise, we are pretty set. Like, we didn't need that much anywhere else. There's an argument to say maybe a defensive player, maybe a centre-back, but the way in which we're going to do things, I'm not worried about that. You'll see why in just a moment. I think we're going to be just fine. And the Dortmund squad, now we can sort of talk about it. Now I've announced Zlatan has arrived. The Dortmund squad is really interesting. They've got a lot of very, very similar players. And the big thing for me, a lot of very similar young players as well. Renier, I think maybe you say it, has come in on loan from Real Madrid, which is one of the weirdest loans. There must be a reason for this, and I don't necessarily know what that reason is, especially when they've got Giovanni Reina here, the American, that is hotly tipped to be fantastic, and looking at his profile there at 17, he's going to be really, really good. Not only that, Jude Bellingham, another very similar player. I don't know if some of these players are going to play a little bit deeper behind one another or next to one another in the future, but to have three of them is very, very bizarre. I'm looking forward to managing them, but it does seem curious. In the wider areas, there's a host of experience. If I bring you my team, right, this is what I think we're going to play this season. And we've already played a little bit so far. We've played a few games, and it's gone pretty well. Just to give you an idea, the friendlies were a doddle, a 10-0 win in our first debut of this formation, a 4-1 win and a 2-1 win. We'll talk about how the system works a little bit, of course, then get into this game against Bayern Munich. But there's so much good quality in this Dortmund side, and I think they're not necessarily playing with it in the right way. Berkey is the first choice goalkeeper. There's not really anyone challenging him. Hitz is okay, but again, he's very similar. It's just an older head, isn't he? He's not someone that you would start necessarily, but a good backup, someone you'd want here at the club. Defensively, Mats Hummels would ordinarily play, but has got a little injury for this game against Bayern, so won't be featuring for us. So, it's Akanji, Zagadou, both in there. And this is where things get interesting. Emre Can is going to play for me as a libero. That's right. It's more to do with the positioning of Emre Can. We could play him slightly further ahead, but I think the defensive stability of Borussia Dortmund is something they've struggled with a little bit this year. They've conceded a lot of goals in real life, and I want to try and cut that out by having someone sit between the two defenders, again, whether it's Hummels or Akanji ordinarily, right? And Emre Can can be that guy. You look at his defensive attributes, he's got decent heading, decent jumping ability for this level. Physicals are good across the board. His mental attributes are very, very solid as well. And good tackling, which you need in sort of a defensive player. With the ball, Emre Can will move into these spaces and help the midfield of Delaney and Witsel. Without the ball, he will sit in that back three and allow Delaney and Witsel in front of him to do those defensive duties. And I think that works out pretty well for us, especially in big games. But that is something we're going to test against Bayern coming up. In the wider areas, Meunier is on the right-hand side. We've got Paslak, we've got Piszczek. There's quite a few options on the right-hand side, but for this complete wing-back role, he's certainly the best option of the three. Still needs to learn a little bit, but really good going forward, decent defensively. And the same can be said for Rafael Guerreiro on the other side. Lacks a little bit in tackling for me and marking, defensive attributes, but again, having an opportunity to get forward, be a part of attacks. Part of the reason we're playing this system is him, right? He sort of fits this better than anybody else. If you've got three defenders, you don't have to worry so much about him going forward. And again, Shan sort of marshalling this central area should provide us a nice balance with those two centre-backs. My only concern would be that because we've got starting like an Emre Can in the centre, there's gaps through the middle, something we've not really had a problem with so far, but it is something I'm keeping in mind for the future. So I think always when you play a three at the back formation, it's great having the option of having someone join attacks and be a part of attacking plays and starting things off and being an option for the fullbacks, for example. And again, we'll see that when we get into some games. Delaney and Witsel in the centre, really strong pairing. Like Thomas Delaney, a really good footballer in Football Manager, central player, left-sided as well, makes a lot of sense. And Witsel next to him, these two boys, fantastic in terms of holding the ball, keeping the ball. Physically, neither are really, really quick, but that's not really what we're looking for. They are the pivots to what happens behind and in front of them. And speaking of what's in front of them, the options we have up here, really exciting, especially in the wide areas, right? Thorgan Hazard and Julian Brandt are in this side, and they don't even start. So we've got Jadon Sancho on one side. Royce will play on the left-hand side again. He's got a little injury. I know, surprised with Royce sometimes. But Brandt can do the same thing, as can Thorgan Hazard. So yeah, ordinarily Hummels and Royce would be in this side. But you can see him there, playing as a trequartista. Sancho doing the same thing on the other side. And it's interesting. I think the way in which we're going to do things with Borussia Dortmund this season is creating the best amount of chances. And the way in which trequartistas play Football Manager, and it's sort of highlighted a little bit. I'm not in the way, am I? You can see the way we build up the ball, right? They haven't got wide trequartistas so much, but it's the very final sort of frame of what happens here. The way that he gets past a couple of players, plays it back for an easy finish. I want two players doing that. The dribbling ability of all of the players I've mentioned, whether it be Julian Brandt or especially someone like Jadon Sancho, who's not only got really good agility and acceleration, but 18 dribbling and great first touch technique, off the ball, flair, vision, passing. Like, the trequartista role for me in the wider areas, it's not a favourite role necessarily of Sancho, but this should be like the way, in my opinion, this should be the way that he plays the game. Beating a player, pulling it back, getting a shot off, either way, right? Taking on defenders. That's where he's best. I don't want him in wide areas, crossing the ball in. The same goes for Royce or for Brandt on the other side. Sancho's crossing itself is only a 13, which when you've got a player like Zlatan or Erling Haaland, still works pretty well, right? They are both big presences, 6'4", 6'5" players. But I don't necessarily need that in this side. I want someone like Haaland to have the best opportunities to get shots off on goal. He's got fantastic off the ball, great strength, great finishing ability, and that's what we're looking for. Composure, anticipation, being there in the right place to see off goals and finish as often as possible, right? And that's where he's going to be so crucial for us. In the games we've already played against the likes of Gladbach and Augsburg, he's done just that. Like, we've seen these players so far burst between lines, find passes, cutting it back, and finishing. And that is the way this system is designed. Now, interestingly, Dortmund play a very similar system to this, right? They have overloading fullbacks. They have a central midfield that is sometimes left a little bit vulnerable, but equally is pretty strong going forward. And they've very often played a 3 at the back. They do play 4, they do play 3. And we talked about it with Chelsea. Finding a consistency with your system and having players that fit it and can come in at any stage, that's going to be crucial. Which leaves us leaves me with a little bit of an issue, not just talking. The likes of Jude Bellingham and Reina, I want to get involved in this system, and whether they play these central roles and try and dictate from midfield, or they play these wider areas as trequartistas, we're definitely going to have to find a way to train them. Like, I'm already training Emre Can to play as a libero. That's where I want him. That's where I want him to be. And having other players fit into this system, with the limited budget we've got at Borussia Dortmund, I've not been able to go out and sell loads of players and then bring players in. It's been a little bit more challenging than that. And it's a challenge I'm looking forward to. And if you're, again, looking for a save that you're looking to get into, and you haven't found that save yet this year, maybe give Borussia Dortmund a try and adopt a style of play that maybe suits them. I think this is that style. It's interesting, right? Because you play a libero, he almost becomes your free man, that if it's not working out and you need to change things around a little bit, you take Emre Can back, you maybe drop the fullbacks back, and you play a traditional sort of 4-2-3-1 later into games. But a lot depends upon Sancho, upon Brandt, Royce, whoever's there, right, to feed Erling Haaland as much as possible. So far, he's played a couple of games for us this season. He's got 6 in 3, so that's pretty good. And hopefully he continues that for the rest of the year. We're playing, and this is something that might change. We're playing Haaland currently as an advanced forward. He's very, very good at getting in behind. That's why we're having him there. His pace is a plus point. That's where him and Zlatan, we've talked about before, are going to differ massively. It'll be interesting to see how we adapt that to when we play with Zlatan, to when we're playing with Haaland, knowing that Zlatan can't make those runs in behind. So, yeah, a little bit of a contrast. Again, if I could have found a player to play striker just like Haaland, I would have done. But we're having to adapt things a little bit for Zlatan, and it's going to be curious. We've got a lot of games to play this season, so there's plenty of time to figure out how that's all going to work. Now, I mentioned it before, Bayern Munich. We're going to kick things off with a game. Unlike last series, we're going to do it with this one. We've got the Super Cup. To me, it's a bit of a free hit. Like, I get to play the best team in Germany. I get to use this system against them to see how it would do. Gladbach and Augsburg were dispatched quite comfortably, but how will this work against Bayern Munich? That's going to be the question. It's not a league game, so I don't really... If we lose this, I'll sort of shrug and go, well, it happens sometimes. But if we win it, wow, what a start to the season. Right then, let's get into it then. Then let's also talk about how they play and what makes them so successful. So the big news at the moment for Bayern Munich heading into this one is that David Alaba is injured, and Lewandowski might also miss it as well. But the way in which this Bayern Munich machine play, it's very... We are the machine that are unstoppable, and it's very difficult to stop. Like, when you've got Lewandowski, who is arguably the best striker in the world, only rivaled by a couple, right? It's going to be a similar thing for them of trying to create him as many chances as possible. They've got Sane, they've got Gnabry, Muller's in there as well, creating all sorts of space for himself and others. Tolisso, Goretzka, there's so much strength in this side without even mentioning the back line. And the game changers they've got off the bench, the likes of Douglas Costa, Kingsley Coman, it's not something we have necessarily on our side. There's a few guys, as mentioned, the likes of Brandt and the likes of Thorgan Hazard, to come off benches late in games when Royce and Sancho aren't maybe quite at it. But yeah, we're going to be relying a lot on the younger players. And again, Zlatan. So there's very much this is what we've got, and we're going to try and use it to the best of our ability. Whereas at Bayern, there is a certain level of player, like their bench players would start for us. That's sort of the difference, whereas our bench players would be bench players for them as well. A lot of this might come down to form, though, and we saw with the Chelsea series, sometimes players play their way into the team, and I'm absolutely open to do that. Of course, no Royce today means that Julian Brandt's going to come in and start for us. The rest of the side, as I say, has been explained. One thing I'm going to mention just before we get into it, though, very similar to what we were doing, again, with the if you've not watched the Chelsea series, hopefully you don't mind me keep referencing this, but go watch it, by all means. it's a really interesting series that people seem to really get on board with. I'm sitting these players slightly narrower on both sides. I want them to be the support systems to Haaland, and also I want them to create space for the complete wing-backs on either side. Complete wing-backs aren't something I use very regularly at all, but in this series we're absolutely going to, as we've got lots of options to play there, both on the left and right sides. Even with injuries, we've got like natural players in those roles, so it makes sense. Right then, Bayern Munich, let's get stuck in. Let's see how much they beat us by. As Jadon Sancho has picked up an injury just days before. So I'm now without the two players that, in theory, I'd planned to start for me in these roles. Thorgan Hazard, it looks like, is going to play as well, and figuring out which player should play on which side now is also relatively interesting, as we're going to be without two of our key players that have started the season so well. Sancho could probably play. Like, what's the injury? Let me just check this. A tight Achilles. He probably could play, but I'm not going to risk him. I think when you've got a player like Thorgan Hazard on the bench who can come in and do a very similar job, you're probably going to be all right. Again, not a natural at Trequartista. None of them are, but again, this is sort of the way that we want to play things. Edited play instructions are already set to play just that slightly narrower role, and you'll see it. We'll watch it in 2D. We'll see how it operates, and hopefully get the win. All right, then, despite his injury, they are risking Robert Lewandowski. This is probably quite a big game. I don't know if this game is bigger in Germany than it is as the Community Shield is in England. It's a bit of a glorified friendly, so rightly or wrongly, I'm treating it a little bit like that. Of course, the winners of the league and the cup, I would assume. Right then, here we go. Let's see how it all unfolds, and I'm sure you're curious to see how Emre Can plays in this system. He's not a major part of it, but he's certainly a factor. And of course, managing on the fly, getting to know the team, and that's something I'm going to have to do very early on, as Haaland himself now has picked up a little bit of an injury. Not ideal for us, that Erling, as the ball is flicked forward. And you can see, just to sort of give you an idea off the bat, out of possession, Emre Can will sit right in the very centre of this midfield, of the centre-back, and be prepared to maybe push forward and nab it off the likes of Lewandowski and Muller. The isolation issue that we have with Emre Can might become evident, and moving these two players slightly further back is something that we could do. Witsel and Delaney can both do that. They can both play defensive midfield roles. So, it could well be an option for me. The way that they play Sané is interesting, actually. Like, Gnabry and Sané both start quite wide, but are very, very keen to cut in for Bayern Munich, which, I mean, defensively should be like playing into our hands with just how many defenders we've got, as Akanji's there to stop the first chance that Gnabry tries to create for himself forward towards Haaland, who, being that advanced forward, lets the ball run beyond him, tries to get past his man. Can he do it? Can he get a shot off on goal? He can, but Neuer's there, and quite an easy save. So I find this system most interesting when we're in possession, when we're keeping it, when we're probing a little bit. The movement of those two Trequartistas is so difficult to pick up for defenders. I'm interested to see how a high quality opposition deal with it. They're suggesting we could bring Zlatan on for Haaland, but I'm going to see how long Haaland can last. I don't want to take him off just yet, as Bayern have had the majority of the possession so far, and I do think this system probably plays into teams' hands. But again, when we're breaking, when we're looking for Haaland, we are a very dangerous side, as Davis on this left-hand side now. Again, lots of players around him, pulled back towards Tolisso. Goretzka with a shot on goal. I don't know if that's down to Berkey, really, but he should probably do slightly better for my money as it slides through his hands. We'll look at it in 3 dimensions, and then maybe break down how that's happened and what needs to not happen. I just realised I don't have opposition replays on for this right now. Let's put them back on. Not only put them back on, I do want to kind of see the breakdown of what happened. I'm going to put it into 3D just so we can take a closer look at it. Maybe we'll zoom in just a touch as the ball breaks here down to Goretzka. There's no one really there to meet him. Like, Hazard's ready to break. Same with Brandt. Of course, Haaland will be up by himself. There's a lot of players there. Are they lucky with it? Again, you can't look too much into some highlights. It's a really good strike from Goretzka. I think we just give them the benefit of the doubt, but we're really not creating enough right now. Should say as well, the speed and the agility of both Royce and more so Sancho is so important to how we're operating right now, as Gnabry goes forward. Berkey there to make the save this time. As you know, this is going to happen. Ball launched up towards Haaland. We're trying to get those players in and around him, fizzing around. Brandt finds Hazard. Big chance for us. That was kind of exactly as instructed. The ball from Berkey, I am aiming for Haaland. He's 6'4". The knockdowns to those players, of course, the same can apply when Zlatan's there. The Trequartistas buzzing around him, being available. But that there was such a big chance for Thorgan Hazard. Would Sancho have scored it? I'll never know, viewers. But perfectly done, really. As Bayern here, wow. If they were to score that, the way they passed the ball around there, is difficult for any system to line up, I think. I don't know if we could have stopped that, as again, forward towards Haaland, knocked down to Hazard. This is kind of how we're going to operate going forward. You can see maybe, oh, blimey, Haaland there. Found a little bit of space. Now the fullback's joining in. Guerrero cuts it across goal. Neuer puts it behind. But it's a good example of how a lot of our attacks are going to be formed. We're not going to have high possession playing like this, but the ability to try and catch teams out a little bit is going to be key, as that ball played in isn't its best, as Guerrero's going to get this back. But again, throw-ins on Football Manager don't always lead to something. Half-time. Bayern leading. Both sides have had some good chances, though, so I can't really grumble too much. This is our expected goal, so you can see where our attempts have been from. They've all been pretty good. Like, I dare say we should have had a goal in this game. Yes, Thorgan Hazard. I'm talking about you. I think my fear with if I'd have played wingers would have been that Haaland would have been the most isolated figure in isolated figures, viewers. So I didn't really want that to be the case. I wanted him to have the support of players behind him. And because I know that Witsel and Delaney aren't the most athletic at this stage, as long throws are, of course, going to be a part of our play up towards Haaland, flicked in. I mean, there's going to be a conversation soon about throw-ins. Erling Haaland's 7th goal of the season already, only 4 games played, and flicks it in. If I've got a man who is 6'4", am I going to aim lofted throws towards him? You damn right I am. Jumps ahead of Neuer, who doesn't claim it. And, yeah, easily done. And again, if you're not using long throws in your saves, then you should be. Don't worry about the ability of the throw and taker. The weaker the throw and taker, the more lofty the throw will be. The better the throw and taker, the more bullet it'll be. I find the loftier the throw, the better. So far, and we talked about chance creation, right? I mentioned this before we started. 8 shots on target. I'm going to show you some of the other games after this to see that this is a theme throughout our play. I would love now to be able to snatch this away from Bayern. The problem, of course, is usually Sancho and Royce would be taken off maybe at this stage. You'd bring on fresh legs in the wider areas. Those fresh legs are already on the pitch, which is obviously not great for us. But Brandt, not playing as a winger. Just bear in mind, remember, on our tactics screen, like in theory, Julian Brandt is playing out here. He's not. He's playing in here the whole time. Having him sit a little bit narrower, having him to check with Tista. He's not looking to play super wide all the time. And it just allows that 4 in midfield to be a little bit closer together and help each other, especially when it comes to things like pressing and whatnot. You might be curious that we're not playing a gegenpress in this style, and I realise now, 75 minutes into a game against Bayern Munich, that I've not mentioned, we're playing like a custom fluid counter-attack. It's a fluid counter-attack with a few changes. That's probably going to adapt in the next few episodes, so we'll save that for a future one, as Guerrero does brilliantly defensively there. Julian Brandt and him combining nicely, and it's now a case of if he can get forward, the ball to Haaland, really, really good, as he bears down on goal. The shot goes towards goal, but not on target this time. I'm a little bit worried by his injury. It might be a time to bring Zlatan on now. The game is becoming, you suspect, a little slower as players get a little tireder. That might be the better environment for Zlatan to come into. Lewandowski, by the way, having the ball there and holding it up is fine with me. Like, defensively, we're pretty well set to deal with whatever comes our way, which is a dangerous thing to say when you're defending against Bayern Munich at any stage. Davis now, have I just done myself in, viewers? I feel like I know what I've done. Ball played across. It's all over the place. Oh, no. Well, if you're new to the series or new to the channel, me saying that and then that happening is a theme. Julian Brandt is having a pretty quiet game. I think Giovanni Reina is probably a good player to bring on here. I'm going to bring Zlatan on. I think we lose something not having Haaland. We lose quite a lot not having Haaland. The Hood can come on as well in the centre. He's a little bit more athletic. I'm just more concerned with the fact that Witsel and Delaney aren't having particularly good games. So it's probably an okay move to make, especially in sort of a Super Cup, right? It's not too much of a danger. 15 minutes to go. 2-1 down now, though. Work to do. Sane into our penalty area. Back to Muller as Burke. Oh, I don't want to know what's just got on there, viewers. I don't want to know. I think he dropped the ball. But should I have bought a goalkeeper? Shall I buy a goalkeeper? Reina forward towards Zlatan, who plays it back to Reina, who's in plenty of space. If this ends up with a highlight for us, which is looking like it might just be, Delaney in some space, gets a shot on goal. Some good chances. Another shot on target, by the way. We are having a real good conversion rate in terms of, well, I say conversion rate. Shots on target to shots ratio is really, really good. Into Delaney again. Cleared away. Guerrero. Back to Reina, who's run off the ball by Goretzka and cleared away. But again, we're comfortable. Not long to go. I guess we shall go from balanced to attacking, which will just up our tempo a little bit. We'll try and probably force it a little more, which isn't always optimal, especially in this style. But yeah, something needs to happen. 2 minutes to go. I probably should have done more shouting in this. Emre Can can, of course, come out a little bit now, a little bit further forward. We'll encourage Dahoud to get a little bit further forward as well. Same with Delaney, actually. We might as well get them all forward, right? Why not at this stage? And try and make something happen with this front three. There's time. There's no time. It's been an interesting game, though. Like, the way that the goals have been conceded, I don't feel too bad about it. That said, you didn't see the best of what this system is capable of. And Emre Can's 5.9 doesn't look very good. I suspect his error led to their second goal, the Sané goal, which wasn't great. I'm just going to watch this again in 2D, in 3D, so I want to see what actually happened here. So now he's got it on that side. It's put in across the box. It hits one of our defenders. I don't know if it hits Emre Can there or someone. I don't know what happens. Either way, Sané's in space. You can't really miss from there. And that gives them the lead. The first goal was a decent shot from Goretzka. Can't take too much from it. I mentioned before, though, those 9 shots, really impressive. I'm going to say, put everything aside, that was a pleasing performance. They really are motivated by that. And to lose to Bayern 2-1, I feel like is going to happen. And when you consider one of those goals was an error, I'm not really cut up about it. What will be interesting is the other games we play against the likes of Bayern Munich. Of course, this is only a 5-episode series. I will try and include those Bayern League games in some way. All right, it won't be every single time. For example, the next one we play them won't be involved at all. I'll probably come back around sort of the Leipzig period around January. I don't know. Maybe the Bayern game will be next. Again, we're trying to do 5, right? So you've got to try and find a way to include them all. But you can see episode 4 could be around that sort of Bayern Munich period of time. Of course, Dortmund are in Europe as well. It's not something I'm going to focus on heavily, but it is a conversation we might have at some stage. But yeah, the league form is where things really matter for us. I say they're in Europe. Are Dortmund in Europe? Yeah, they're runners-up last year, so they are in the Champions League. For some reason, I didn't know. Haaland's out for a couple of days. Not too bad. I mentioned the fact that we're creating like high-quality chances. The Augsburg game here will sort of give you an idea of that as well. Only 6 shots, but 5 of those were on target. And the other game against Gladbach, 4-1 victory. But a similar story. 7 shots, 7 on target, and creating those clear-cut chances, again, absolutely crucial. Even in the 10-0 win we had, that's not a good example. But you see, against the sides that are around our level, we're creating good chances, and that's going to be key for us this season. I say, if you're looking forward to the rest of the series, make sure you subscribe so you can follow it along. And yeah, if you want to see more, drop a like. You know, if you've enjoyed this, and I'll be back again tomorrow at the same time for more. We love with care. Until next time. See you again soon. In a bit.